The reason. The mullah went to see a rich man.
Give me some money.
Why?
I want to buy an elephant.
If you have no money, you can't afford to keep an elephant.
I came here, said Nasrudin, to get money, not advice.
Eating his money. Mulla Nasrudin, as everyone knows, comes from a country where fruit is fruit, and meat is meat, and curry is never eaten. One day he was plodding along a dusty Indian road, having newly descended from the high mountains of Kafiristan, when a great thirst overtook him.
Soon, he said to himself, I must come across somewhere that good fruit is to be had.
No sooner were the words formed in his brain than he rounded a corner and saw, sitting in the shade of a tree, a benevolent-looking man with a basket in front of him. Piled high in the basket were huge, shiny red fruits.
This is what I need, said Nasrudin.
Taking 2 tiny coppers from the knot at the end of his turban, he handed them to the fruit seller. Without a word, the man handed him the whole basket, for this kind of fruit is cheap in India, and people usually buy it in smaller amounts. Nasrudin sat down in the place vacated by the fruiterer and started to munch the fruits. Within a few seconds his mouth was burning. Tears streamed down his cheeks, fire was in his throat. The mullah went on eating. An hour or 2 passed, and then an Afghan hillman came past. Nasrudin hailed him.
Brother, these infidel fruits must come from the very mouth of Shaitan.
Fool, said the hillman. Hast thou never heard of the chilies of Hindustan? Stop eating them at once, or death will surely claim a victim before the sun is down.
I cannot move from here, gasped the mullah, until I have finished the whole basketful.
Madman! Those fruits belong in curry. Throw them away at once.
I am not eating fruit any more, croaked Nasrudin. I am eating my money.
The use of a light.
I can see in the dark,
boasted Nasrudin one day in the tea-house. If that is so, why do we sometimes see you carrying a light through the streets?
Only to prevent other people from colliding with me.
Why don't you? Nasrudin went to the shop of a man who stocked all kinds of bits and pieces.
Have you got nails? He asked.
Yes.
And leather, good leather?
Yes.
And twine?
Yes.
And dye?
Yes.
Then why, for heaven's sake, don't you make a pair of boots?
Prudence. The mullah was invited to a wedding feast. The last time he had been to that house, someone had carried off his sandals. Now, instead of leaving them at the door, he stuffed them into the inner pocket of his coat. What book is that in your pocket? His host asked him.
He may be after my shoes, thought Nasrudin. Besides, I have a reputation as a learned man to keep up.
Aloud he said,
The subject of the bulge which you see is
Prudence. How interesting. Which bookshop did you get it from?
As a matter of fact, I got it from a shoemaker.
Assumptions. What is the meaning of fate, Mulla?
Assumptions.
In what way?
You assume things are going to go well, and they don't. That you call bad luck. You assume things are going to go badly, and they don't. That you call good luck. You assume that certain things are going to happen or not happen, and you so lack intuition that you don't know what is going to happen. You assume that the future is unknown. When you are caught out, you call that fate.
Just suppose. The mullah was walking down the village street deep in thought, when some urchins began to throw stones at him. He was taken by surprise, and besides, he was not a big man.
Don't do that, and I will tell you something of interest to you.
All right, what is it? But no philosophy.
The emir is giving a free banquet to all comers.
The children ran off towards the emir's house as Nasrudin warmed to his theme, the delicacies and the delights of the entertainment. He looked up and saw them disappearing into the distance. Suddenly he tucked up his robes and started to sprint after them.
"I'd better go and see," he panted to himself, "because it might be true after all."
Alternate crop. The mullah went to the barber, who shaved him with a blunt razor and a clumsy hand. Every time he drew blood, the barber stuck a wisp of cotton on the nick to stop the bleeding. This continued for some time, until one side of Nasrudin's face was thickly dotted with cotton wool. As the barber was about to shave the other cheek, the mullah suddenly caught sight of himself in the mirror and jumped up.
"That is enough, thank you, brother. I have decided to grow cotton on one side and barley on the other."
Tit for tat. Nasrudin went into a shop to buy a pair of trousers. Then he changed his mind and chose a cloak instead at the same price. Picking up the cloak, he left the shop. "You have not paid," shouted the merchant.
"I left you the trousers, which were of the same value as the cloak."
"But you did not pay for the trousers either."
"Of course not," said the mullah. "Why should I pay for something that I did not want to buy?"
Whose servant I? Mulla Nasrudin had become a favourite at court. He used his position to show up the methods of courtiers. One day the king was exceptionally hungry. Some aubergines had been so deliciously cooked that he told the palace chef to serve them every day.
"Are they not the best vegetables in the world, Mullah?"
he asked Nasrudin.
"The very best, Majesty."
5 days later, when the aubergines had been served for the 10th meal in succession, the king roared,
"Take these things away, I hate them."
"And they are the worst vegetables in the world, Majesty,"
agreed Nasrudin.
"But, Mullah, less than a week ago you said that they were the very best."
"I did, but I am a servant of the king, not of the vegetable."
Inscrutable Fate. Nasrudin was walking along an alleyway when a man fell from a roof and landed on his neck. The man was unhurt. The mullah was taken to hospital. Some disciples went to visit him. "What wisdom do you see in this happening, Mullah?"
"Avoid any belief in the inevitability of cause and effect. He falls off the roof, but my neck is broken. Shun reliance upon theoretical questions such as, if a man falls off a roof, will his neck be broken?
The answer.
There is nothing without an answer,
said a monk as he entered the tea-house where Nasrudin and his friends sat.
Yet I have been challenged by a scholar with an unanswerable question, observed the mullah.
Would that I had been there. Tell it to me, and I shall answer it.
Very well. He said, Why are you stealing into my house through a window by night?
Idiots. Carrying home a load of delicate glassware, Mulla Nasrudin dropped it in the street. Everything was smashed. A crowd gathered.
What's the matter with you, idiots?
Howled the mullah.
Haven't you ever seen a fool before?
If Allah wills it. Nasrudin had saved up to buy a new shirt. He went to a tailor's shop full of excitement. The tailor measured him and said, "Come back in a week, and, if Allah wills, your shirt will be ready." The mullah contained himself for a week and then went back to the shop. There has been a delay, but if Allah wills, your shirt will be ready tomorrow." The following day, Nasrudin returned. "I am sorry," said the tailor, "but it is not quite finished. Try tomorrow, and, if Allah wills, it will be ready."
How long will it take, asked the exasperated Nasrudin, if you leave Allah out of it?
A great thought. One day, Nasrudin asked his wife to cook halwa, a rich sweetmeat, and gave her all the ingredients. She made a large quantity, and the mullah ate nearly all of it. That night, when they were in bed, he woke her up.
"I have just had a remarkable thought."
"What is it?"
"Bring me the rest of the halwa, and I will tell you."
She got up and brought him the halwa, which he ate. "Now," she said, "I shall not be able to sleep until you tell me the thought."
"The thought," said Nasrudin, "was this. Never go to sleep without finishing all the halwa which has been made during the day."
The exploit. In the tea-house, some soldiers were boasting about their recent campaign. The local inhabitants crowded eagerly around them to listen.
"And,"
one fearsome-looking warrior was saying,
"I took my double-edged sword and charged the enemy, scattering them to right and left like chaff. We carried the day."
There was a gasp of applause.
"That reminds me,"
said Nasrudin, who had seen a few battles in his time,
"of the time when I cut off the leg of an enemy on the battlefield, severed it right through."
"You would have done better, sir," replied the captain of the soldiers, "to have cut off his head."
That would have been impossible," said the mullah. "You see, someone else had already done that."
The hunt. The king, who enjoyed Nasrudin's company, sent for him one day to go hunting bears. Bears are dangerous. Nasrudin was terrified at the prospect, but could not get out of it. When he arrived back at the village, someone asked him, How did the hunt go?
Marvellously.
How many bears did you kill?
None.
How many did you chase?
None.
How many did you see?
None.
How could it go marvellously then?
When you are hunting bears, none is more than enough.
Both, Your Majesty. Nasrudin was not sure about court etiquette, and yet he was among the notables who would have to be received by the Sultan when he visited the locality. An equerry quickly briefed him. The king would ask him how long he had been living there, how long he had studied to become a mullah, and whether he was happy about the taxation and spiritual welfare of the people. He memorized his answers, but they started in another order. How long have you studied?
35 years.
How old are you then?
12 years.
This is impossible. Which of us is mad?
Both, Your Majesty.
You call me mad, like you?
Of course we are mad, but in a different way, Your Majesty.